In today's episode, we're going to talk about how the industry is always changing and how it's important to stay relevant as things evolve. Welcome to Sweet Independence, the podcast for beauty professionals ready to build the business of their dreams. I'm Kristen Kinzel, founder of Utopia Modern Salon Suites. With 34 years in this industry, I've seen firsthand the power of independence and community. We'll ditch the stress, unlock your potential, and give you the clarity and confidence to thrive. Get ready to transform your career and build the fulfilling life you deserve. Your flourishing future starts now. Welcome to the podcast. Today we are here at the Paul Mitchell School with Schrene Davis, the owner. Thank you for having us.
Well, thank you for asking me. It's my pleasure.
Sure. Tell us, I want to know everything about how you got started, from cosmetology school to here you are owning 3 schools?
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like it's like accidental leadership, really. I never really had like a long-term plan or a vision. Like we were just discussing off the pod, kind of my background is I grew up in Western Kansas, and, that's not where dreams are made. I really wasn't thinking that, where am I? I was thinking I need to get out of here, but what's the path out of here? I really don't know. And I was just saying, since we're a school that offers financial aid, just like a lot of the parents that bring their kids in, they're just unaware of what FAFSA is and what financial aid can offer as an opportunity to go to school through grants and loans. I grew up and my parents didn't go to college, and they were unaware that there was assistance to help with college. And so I'm the oldest kid of 4, and so my parents had always just said, I don't know what you're going to do unless you figure out a way to make a lot of money or whatever. College is probably not going to be in the cards. And so I really didn't dream about what it was that I liked to do. What did I do? I really just had no vision. And so when I got to my senior year and I felt like kids were just making those commitments of where they were going to go to college, I really just felt kind of lost, like, I don't know. And so my mom was the one that said, well, you've always liked to do hair and makeup. You would do everybody's hair for prom and homecoming and makeup, and you like to do your own hair. So why don't you go to hair school? And I was like, oh, okay, well, is there one here? And so I went to Garden City Community College. And what's kind of funny is I was always a cheerleader, like a lifelong diehard cheerleader. And so what's funny is I could go to Garden City Community College on a cheerleading scholarship, but go to cosmetology school. And my kids are disgusted by that. They're like, don't tell people you were a cheerleader. How embarrassing.
I think it's cool.
Oh, yeah. I enjoyed it. I had fun. I liked it. I did get a full volleyball scholarship, but I felt like I related more to the cheerleaders than I did the volleyball players, especially in the 80s. I feel like things have changed now because my younger daughter has done volleyball, and they look like girly girls were back in the day. I didn't really fit in with all the hairspray and stuff I had going on with the 80s hair. So that led me to cosmetology school. And when I was in cosmetology school, I absolutely hated it. And I always tell the students here, because I feel like what's so important about this industry is just having some freedom of expression and just kind of being who you are. And I feel like that's what clients are most attracted to, is really you as the person. And I always tell them that they're going to give you a chance if you did a bad haircut or a bad perm, bad color. It's you that they really enjoy. So they're going to give you another opportunity to correct that and try to grow with them. So when I was in cosmetology school and doing cheerleading, I was totally enjoying that. But what's funny is I started dating a guy that was very career-minded, and he was just like, are you just going to cut hair for the rest of your life? Like, what's that going to do? Are you really going to make money with that? And I was like, I don't really know. I said, I had no real, I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing with it. I was just taking it one day at a time. That's basically all I was doing. And so then I thought, well, maybe I do need to go back to college. So once I was on a college campus, I got educated on FAFSA and the opportunity to take loans or whatever. And so I thought, okay, as soon as I'm done with cosmetology school, I'll go on and start taking classes. And that's what I did. I started taking my general eds. That relationship led me to Springfield, Missouri, because he was playing football for Missouri State, which at the time it was called Southwest Missouri State. So it was SMS. And so I was like, okay, let's go to Springfield. I felt like Springfield was such a big city compared to where I grew up. And
where did you grow up?
In Holcomb, right outside of Garden City.
Okay.
Yeah, so super tiny. My graduating class was like 39 people. The whole high school was probably 150 people.
Oh, wow.
And so teeny tiny. And so I loved it when I went to, at the time, I think Missouri State was maybe about 15,000. And I love just being on a campus with lots of people that didn't know your name and didn't know where you were from.
Didn't know your siblings, your whole family.
Yes, exactly. I'm the oldest now. My siblings say they got called me or, oh, I remember your sister. I don't know what that's like since I'm the oldest child. But yeah, so that kind of just led me out of Kansas into Missouri. But what's great is, I transferred my license over to Missouri, got a job that was more like a chain salon, just cutting hair. And that kind of helped me get out of the hump, because this is what I always tell students here. If you don't use what you learn, you're really going to lose it. You got to put it to work right away. And I'd kind of waited about a year or so.
So you did hair while you were in college?
I ended up doing that.
Okay.
While I went back and got my general eds, at first I wasn't. And I was just working little odd jobs. JCPenney's had a job there. And my mom was just like, why don't you get your license? Why don't you get your license? Well, I just kind of got afraid because I'd waited about a year. And she was just like, we're going to get your license renewed in Missouri. And so I finally went and got a job. And I found that a lot of salons, just offer a lot of education and guidance and things like that. It was a commissioned salon. And, I think everybody these days feels like, oh, you want to work for yourself or be out on your own. But I feel like there's a lot of value in working around people and a place that's going to help drive in business and walk-ins. So you don't have to think about that. So that is what I ended up doing the 4 years that I was in college. I ended up going booth rent eventually, but I stayed the first couple years just working for a chain salon that was there in Springfield, and then ended up going booth rent with some friends on my own at a salon. What's funny is we were just kind of a group of young people working in a salon with a lot of older people, but that was great because they could kind of hold your hand. So several of them were educators for some brands, and when I was in the back trying to formulate color and freaking out, they were there to walk me through it and kind of hold my hand and give me confidence.
It's a good way to learn work ethic too, working around older people.
Yeah. Yep, they really poured into us, and it was a good, nurturing, supportive salon. I know there can be a lot of negative salon culture, but this was really positive. And this was really, this is before the days of the internet or cell phones. And so you really just had to beat the streets and, put it out there to build your clientele the hard way. And so, yeah.
My first job out of school was at Regis in the mall. And it's scary to think back to the things that I did to people's hair. I had no idea what I was doing.
Pulling it full through a cap.
And then perming it.
Yes.
And then having the hair fall out into the sink and on the rods. But, that's interesting that you say that, because back then we had to do that. We had to have the foot traffic because there was no Instagram or any other way. We handed out business cards or worked in a place like that.
Just word of mouth.
I feel like those places they still exist, but we tend to forget about them because we can build on Instagram, build a presence and a clientele.
Yeah. So much easier these days.
Yeah, they do have it. They have it good. I don't know, though. There was a lot to be said for just burning hair and figuring it out.
That's right. My hair was definitely that. I always had to bleach it out as light blonde as possible and then perm over it. I'm surprised I even had any hair. You can see my cosmetology photos and, scary.
That's funny.
I'm always amazed at the students that can start here with really long hair and end here with really long hair. What I liked about licensing in Missouri is that you had to have your photo on your license. And so we would keep all the student licenses in the hallway. And so if you were trying to reference somebody, you could go out there and see their photo. But it was so fun to see the photo and then see what they looked like when they graduated.
Yeah.
And here in Kansas, we don't have to have photos on the license, but it is funny to see their journey. But we do take photos of everybody on their first day, and then we take photos and clap them out when they graduate. And so you can see the progression. Or there's some of them that are able to hold on to that beautiful long hair. I don't know how they do it. They resist.
I don't either. Yeah, I think I tried everything in cosmetology school.
Me too. From lightening my eyebrows to whatever. Yeah, I went through like a strawberry blonde phase. Yeah, you can look at the history in the photos for sure.
That's pretty fun.
It is.
So tell me more about your career, how you got from where you left off to.
So then that landed me in Springfield. And after college, I actually ended up working for Aveda. At the time, Aveda had what they called boutiques. And so they used distributors at the time. And so I actually ended up managing, it would be basically a beauty supply, but it was Aveda products. And then the distributor there had licensing to carry other things. And so they ended up shutting those down. And so then I ended up getting a job with Salon Service Group, who sold Paul Mitchell, but they only had Paul Mitchell in certain regions of Missouri. And so I ended up being the Paul Mitchell sales rep for those regions. And then I could sell other things, other brands in other regions, but that's what I ended up primarily focusing on. And so when I became the rep, it just kind of opened my world to John Paul Mitchell systems in some of the chain salons. I'd used the product, but I really didn't know much about the company. I mean, I knew who John Paul was and I knew who Paul Mitchell was because back in cosmetology school, we would watch videos of Paul Mitchell cutting hair on the beach in Hawaii. And then
we didn't do that at my school.
Oh, really? Yes, we didn't watch the VHS tapes. We actually had a little TV on wheels, and so we'd have little segments where we'd watch it, and I always just thought, that's amazing, and we'd see videos of hair shows and stuff like that, but that seemed way out of my league to be able to tap into that. And then Paul Mitchell died, I think, while I was in cosmetology school. I think it was in 1989 of pancreatic cancer. And so I only knew just a little bit of history. But working for the brand, I actually just got to know the company so well. And so I would go to a gathering, which was their yearly celebration and education for hairstylists. And so as being the rep, I'd get to go to sales camp, which was a few days prior to that. And I just happened to be there, and they had a segment where students would come and give us services. And they were just promoting the first school was opened in Costa Mesa. And so that was a collaboration between Wynn Claybaugh and John Paul DeJoria. And so I met these students. They gave us like some tea tree services. They brought literally the wash bowls on the stage, and you could go up there and get services. And I was just like, these are students? I just couldn't believe it. Just their professionalism, their knowledge. I just thought, I never got that in cosmetology school. I really graduated feeling like, I literally feel like I don't know anything. I just didn't feel prepared to be in the salon, especially business-wise. I just felt like I don't know what's going on. And you know how it is when you have to be in charge of your own taxes. I just felt like that beat me up and ate my lunch. And I was just like, I don't know if I want to do that. That was one of the reasons why I went to different parts of the industry, because I just didn't want to pay booth rent, didn't want to be responsible for my own taxes. All that pressure I felt like took away from the creativity that really led me down that path. And so I really was thinking as a sales rep, like, this school concept is something we need here in Missouri in our areas. It was only like little mom and pop beauty schools. And I really didn't like the beauty school I went to, but when I lived in Missouri and called on these beauty schools, I had a new appreciation, because since it was in a state-funded school, we had a nice facility, we had great educators that were wonderful. They kept the classes super small. I didn't have to go to school on Saturdays. It was like Monday through Friday. And so I realized, wow. And so calling on these schools in Missouri, they were just, people were still smoking, TVs on the stage. Like, I was just like, sometimes carpeted areas. It was just super crazy. And then I got to know the whole salon community by being a sales rep. And the thing I heard consistently was, we can't hire anyone that is trained. Like, no one is an asset. We have to totally teach everyone that we hire. They absolutely know nothing. These schools are teaching them nothing. And so then I was
except how to pass boards.
Yeah, except how to pass board. It was the bare minimum. And Missouri was quite different in their licensure than Kansas. The tests were just easier. They just made it simpler to get to licensure. So schools could function on a pretty low level and still, they had nowhere else to go. They had to pay to go there. And so I went to a meeting, because after I met these students and found out, I was like, I just want to find out more about these schools, like what's going on. And so I had heard that, hey, they're going to start franchising these schools. So I was never thinking, oh, okay, I'm going to take this on. The clients that I serve in my community need to know about this. And so I went to the first potential meeting and I heard about the concept, what they wanted to do with schools. And I was just like, blown away. I was like, this is amazing. Like, this is the school experience I would have wanted when I went to school. This is exactly what I'm looking for. So then I was like, hey, send me the information. Well, they sent it in the mail. It was just like loads of stuff. And as I started reading it, I realized no one I know is going to do this. Like, just the education and the training and the concepts behind it. I just thought it was functioning at such a low level. I just couldn't see people wanting to make that bridge and jump to it. So at the time, I had met some friends that I had worked with at that last salon that I had worked with. And we'd become couple friends, really close, and been on a journey together. And so I had come home one night and told my husband, like, maybe we should look into this. And, he was just like, well, we don't have any money. That sounds really expensive. I don't see how we can do that. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. So we started talking to our friends. And we were just like, what do you guys think? Is this something we realized we'd need partners? We'd need to do this adventure with somebody. And so thankfully, my friend, Stephanie and Greg Kellogg, her dad was a business owner, had some money, and he was willing to take a chance on us, invest in us. We sat down with him, we showed him the concept. I felt like I knew the salon community well enough that I was like, I feel like this community would support this concept. And so he was just like, okay, well, I'm in. And so we went to potential owners. The Orlando school had opened up. And so we went for a training there and just kind of heard about what the journey was going to take to be school owners. And
how
just
many
being
schools were there at this point-ish?
Maybe 5, maybe.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember the first ones that opened up. Not a lot.
How many are there now?
Like right now, there's probably 120.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you were on the ground level.
Yeah, I was really at the beginning. So it's funny, the first potential owners we went to, because at the very beginning, we were just like, well, let's open one in Kansas City. Let's open one in St. Louis. We lived in Springfield. We were kind of looking at like that triangle. But the first people that we met were some girls that were from Illinois, and they had their eyes on St. Louis. And then my regional rep for Paul Mitchell, he's out of Kansas City. He already had his eye on Kansas City. So we were like, okay, well, let's just start with Springfield and see how that goes. And I mean, we couldn't believe how fast. I think it might have been a year and a half from going to that potential owners meeting to opening up. Wow. And yeah, it was so fast. And that was 2000, and we opened this school in 2009. So that was like 2005. So, we had to look at it as families. And what's great is my husband had a marketing ad agency that he had started up with some partners. And then Stephanie and I were both the cosmetologist, and her husband actually was a physical therapist, but he got into like medical device sales. So needless to say, our husbands had good careers, and they were like, oh yeah, you girls go and open up a little beauty school and you do this.
Have the support of your husbands, though, it would have never happened.
Yeah. I don't think any of us anticipated how big it would get and then how much it would need all of us, really. I think at the beginning, we just thought me and Stephanie could just kind of run the school.
Little hobby job.
Yeah, and our husbands could just keep their careers. But it became really apparent, like, hey, this is going to probably, take all of us just to run the show. And we were just super blessed in Springfield. And still, out of all our schools, Springfield is the best, most successful school. And I don't know what it is about that area. There's not a lot of high level competition. And when we built that school there, it was definitely something that they'd never seen. They were really just blown away. And just the Paul Mitchell culture and the curriculum layout was just something that nobody had really seen for beauty school. It was just really different. They really teach differently and come from a different perspective. And they just really have a community fundraising, give back mentality. And it's not just about you as the artist behind the chair and what you can do. It's about how you can serve your community and give back and what you can do besides just being the artist behind the chair. And so that whole concept was something that, none of us had ever really heard or seen. And so, when you first open a cosmetology school, you have to open unaccredited, and the accrediting agencies, you have to take a 3-year journey. They have to see certain outcomes before you can offer financial aid. So we kind of look at that as like the blissful years, because financial aid's a little bit of a double-edged sword. It's like you can't live without it, but the things that it does bring is super challenging. And you start to feel like you lose a portion of control over your business because, when you're in business with the government, they just have a big say. And so those 3 years in Springfield, I felt like were really special just because people had to cash pay. And
were you able to keep your classrooms full without accreditation?
We really were, surprisingly.
Really?
That's what's amazing about that school is it's been profitable since day one. I wish we could say that here in Wichita, but it's been a much harder journey. And there's just a lot of different factors. And that's what I had to get really educated on. Things went so well in Springfield, we thought we can just pick up that model, come to Wichita, and boom, we'll have success the same way. And I can't tell you how different it's been. So I didn't know the market like I did in Springfield just because I haven't grown up here. I spent 20 years in Springfield, and just that time that I had working with the salon community, I felt like I just really had the inside track. And
you
that's
probably
something
had
I didn't
a
bring
reputation
here.
as well.
Yeah, I did.
People knew who you were.
And when I started telling people, hey, we're going to open a cosmetology school, they were just
probably
like,
very
yes.
excited. Yes.
They were like, yes, please. And so I was able to personally go around and tell every salon about the vision of the school and what it was going to look like. And so everybody was immediately on board with that. I feel like Eric Fisher's has set the standard here in such a great way that I think the Wichita people just expect it to be at this level. Whereas in Springfield, it was unexpected and it was just a wonderful surprise of like, wow, we didn't even know this was possible, and the quality of education. So we just built a reputation really quickly, and all the salons would recommend us. So anybody that sat in their chair that was like, I may want to go to cosmetology school, they were like,
you
go to the
must
Paul
go
Mitchell
here.
School. Yeah. So everybody fed into it. And so they've grown just years of great relationships with the salon community. And here we've had to work a lot harder to develop that. You know, it's just taken a lot of years, and we're starting over with just our aesthetics program being in its second year. You know, we're working to develop those relationships. We've not been known as an aesthetic school. And so, you know, just trying to cultivate those relationships is hard. So, you know, the potential student has a lot of options here in Wichita. And so I feel like there's a salon for everybody. I feel like there's a school for everybody. And so, you know, we just show the students what we have, and we just tell them, explore your options, think about it. It's a big investment. Make sure this is really what you want to do, because, you know, there's going to be days that you wake up and you kind of lose sight of why you wanted to do it. And so make that decision for the right reasons. And so that's just some of our philosophy. Yeah.
So one thing you and I have in common with being of the same generation, and we talked about this earlier, when I made the decision after high school, or during high school, I guess, to go on and go to cosmetology school rather than college, that didn't go over well with everyone in my life at the time. And you and I talked about that. And I'm curious, from my vantage point, it looks like that's changed a little bit. I see people telling me, hey, Kristen, I'm excited. My daughter said she wants to go to cosmetology school. And I love that. What are you seeing that change? How's that evolved from when you were a high school senior to now?
Yeah, I feel like the whole culture of college has changed a little bit. And I feel like a lot of that stemmed from people being saddled with all that loan debt. And so I have a 24-year-old and a 19-year-old. And I think it's amazing that my 24-year-old is just like, I would never take out student loans. And I just feel like of our day and age, I was like, oh, where do I sign? Like, what? Yeah. Okay. I wasn't really thinking about like, yeah, you just do. If this is what it's going to take to get me to where I want to go, where do I sign? And so I think that's kind of how it started, is just like, yeah. But I feel like now people are like, well, am I going to be able to pay that back? How long is it going to take? What skills am I going to have? There's no guarantee that I'm going to have a job. And I've just told people in this industry, the guarantee is if you want it, it's there. Salons always need more help, more hires. They need great people. So I think the sky's the limit, and it's really just up to you as the individual what you want to make it. And so if you want to just sit there and hope that people will come, no, you have to cultivate it. So I think we do a really great job during the admissions process to make people aware that, you know, it just doesn't happen overnight. I think people watch TikTok or Instagram and they just think, oh, I can just be a millionaire overnight. No, you have to build it and lay a foundation and put it in there.
And work hard.
Yes, and work hard. And if you're a super introvert and you don't really like people, then this may not be for you. Yeah, I feel like you have to be a lover of people and be willing to find common ground with everybody and talk and build relationships. And I think that's what people find surprising about this industry. It's not just about the technical, it's about the relationships. And so you have to be a good listener and somebody that really wants to pour into people and give that time. And I think people are surprised by that. And so I think that's sometimes why sometimes people get into it and they're just like, I really don't like touching people. I don't like being in their personal space. Yeah. I don't like being a part of how they see themselves. And, you know, I think that they find that very surprising. I think they just think about it artistically. And I think it's just more well-rounded. But yeah, I find parents are a lot more open these days. Like, hey, this is a skill that they can get in a year. And what's great about the cosmetology side of it is you literally can be licensed in less than a week. So you can graduate from cosmetology school on a Friday and be licensed by the end of the next Friday. And I think that's amazing. And our goal too is that we build those salon relationships and we take them out to see what their opportunities are. And that way they know where they're going to land before they even graduate. So that's why we have a big celebration when somebody hits their final hours, and they can really talk about and share at their clap out where they're already going to go. They usually know. It's very rare that someone's just like, I don't know where I'm going to work. Usually it's a number of options. They just have to make the decision on what the best fit is for them. And, we build those relationships with owners like yourself, that we try to bring in people, since we know that one size really doesn't fit all. There's going to be all different things. We try to show our future professionals all the opportunities they have in the industry. So whether it's owning a school like myself, or being a platform artist like my brother who leads the education team for Paul Mitchell Advanced Education, there's just so many sides, or being a sales rep like I was. I just think there's more than what people really see. And so
I agree. And I think the industry has changed in that when we were graduating, like you said, someone in your life said, what are you going to do? Just go cut hair?
Right.
Where are you
is that going to really make money?
Yeah. And you can do that. You can just go cut hair or you can do anything. Be an educator, own a school, own salons. Yeah. The sky's the limit. And I think because of social media, maybe now we're seeing that, like, oh gosh, there's a lot more, which probably helps families be more supportive when they see, oh, okay, so this doesn't mean you're going to be at Regis or JCPenney, which there's nothing wrong with that either. I mean, that serves some people very well. But I love it when I get to meet your students when they're touring my salon. And I told you today when I showed up here at your school, it's weird. I didn't go to school here. It didn't exist yet, unfortunately. But it's so nostalgic. It's so cool to see all these people who have no idea what their potential is and to be able to see it in them. I love it. I love meeting the students and showing them kind of all that they can do and getting them to believe in themselves. But it is true. There's definitely a mix of people, those who don't have the grit to do it and the desire and who aren't comfortable maybe socially. Right. And then those that you can just see, holy cow, you're going to do big stuff.
Right. But what we've learned through the admissions process is you never know. I feel like sometimes people can have a dynamic tour and we're just like, this person's going to be amazing. And they're not. And then sometimes you can do these tours where you're like, I don't even know why they're here. They really seem like they don't have any questions. I don't know if they have a passion for the industry. And then they end up being amazing at the school. And so you never know. What I feel like is the beauty of being 18 years old or 18 years for the school and over 20 years for my Springfield school is to see the full circle moment. And sometimes we have a panel of our graduates come in and just speak about their journey, people that have been out 10 years. And I've also been blessed to have some of my graduates come back and work for me. And so I love that. And I think some of them are amazed because sometimes they were a pill in school. And just like you, I mean, we were 18, 19. This is their growing up journey. And
first time away from home.
Yes, exactly. Or just, I mean, their first thing out of high school where mom and dad aren't calling the shots. Some of them try to do too much. They try to get an apartment, get a job, go to school, and, they're having a breakdown. And so we're here for every part of it. And I really don't judge because I wait to see what they really do outside these walls, because I feel like if you would have looked at me as a student, I was not a great student either. And I mean, I kind of had an attitude. I didn't enjoy it while I was there. I put very little into it. And back then, we had to wear a uniform. And so what was funny is it was like khaki pants with like the seams, and we had to wear white nursing shoes. Oh. And then we had to wear just like button-down shirts that were khaki. And then because we were part of like some organization that we had to learn things and we had to wear patches sewn on there. Like it was the most like uncreative look. So I was like, at the time, I was just like, I'm not buying more than one pair of khaki pants. So I always tell people, I think I wore the same pair of pants for the whole 10 months or whatever I was in cosmetology school. And, we did have to show up with our hair and makeup done. And then here we will do write-ups, and those lead to different, consequences. But there we actually had demerits. And so if you were like chewing gum and doing someone's hair, if you were doing your own hair, you had to do demerits, and so many demerits led to papers that were assigned in theory. And so I can't tell you how many papers I had to do because I was always chewing gum and sneaking off to do my own hair. So it's just hilarious how far we've come with cosmetology school. Yeah. And I think that was part of what I didn't like about it. I just felt like it seemed very regimented and not really creative. And I don't know how they did it when you were in school, but like they mixed our color for us and they kind of formulated for us. And then they would just show us the techniques. And that's what led me to when I graduated, I felt like I don't really understand color theory. I don't feel like I really was empowered enough to make any mistakes. And here we just say there are no mistakes. There's just discoveries. And all of it's just part of the learning journey, you know? Yeah. And so when the educators are out there with the student, they're there to help them, but we want them to give us, what would you do? Like they have what they call a little download where, you know, they do the consultation with the client and then they walk over and this, you know, the educator just says, so what do you think? What would you do? What colors would you pick? And if they're going to go way out in left field and we're like, oh, that would have catastrophic end results, we may say, how about do this? But, you know, we're really trying to empower them to ask the right questions, come up with their own ideas for formulation, because we both know color doesn't just have one way to do things. And so, you know, we all have our preferences and things that we like to tone with or lift with or do whatever. And so, you know, we try to show the students that there's a lot of different ways. And sometimes we just let them pick their way. And in the end, maybe it's a little brassy. Okay, what could you have done differently? You know, what's the discoveries on there?
Another opportunity to learn.
Yeah. And so we try not to show them a lot of shortcuts until they get into what we call phase 2, which is more like salon reality. But we know if you don't learn those fundamental foundations, then how are you going to take shortcuts? You're not going to really understand how it works. So yeah, lots of different ways.
So the beauty industry is always evolving. There's always something new that's in. You know, when we were in school, there was no such word as balayage. And here we are, both of us about the same age in our mid-50s. And sometimes I find that it's hard to stay relevant. And I'm sure you experience that as well. As the salon owner, I don't ever want to be perceived as the old lady who doesn't even know what a balayage is, which I do know what a balayage is.
Yes.
But it's hard to grow in your career in this industry, and that's evolving and always top fashion, all the things, and yet stay relevant as you get older. Do you deal with that? You're dealing with students who are coming in at 18 years old.
Yeah.
And then I know even your daughter has worked for you, and she's in her early 20s.
I think the whole concept of work-life balance is something that I've had to kind of wrap my head around, because I'm just like, what is that? I don't even know. That's a foreign concept. You know, it was just like, just work, you know? And so it's just so different. Since this is an hours program and it's their hours, you know, you have to graduate in a certain amount of time or it's going to cost you additional to stay. And we call it over contract fees. And I felt like in the past that would really govern people's ideas on like, oh, I don't feel like coming today, but I don't want to owe any more money, so I'm going to get there. And I find that people are just like, I don't feel like being here today. I'm just going to clock out and go home. And we're just like, oh, well, you don't want to lose your hours, do you? You know, I don't know. I'm going to go shopping, or I'm going to go on vacation, or I'm going to miss time. And so I just feel like I've had to come up or be flexible on fun. I think fun plays a bigger role than it's ever played, and people just want to feel like things are rewarding and fun. And I think people of our generation are like, you just work, you come to work, you don't need to be patted on the back, there's no trophy, you just finish what you started and you just move on. And I just think that that's not the expectation anymore. So I think we've had to be very creative. And that's the one thing about probably the hair industry in general, but the school world, just because it worked 2 years ago, that doesn't mean it's going to work anymore. And that has probably been the biggest challenge. And as a Paul Mitchell group nationwide, you know, we have a couple meetings a year, and then, I mean, we just have regular trainings monthly or whatever. But sometimes what works in Idaho doesn't work here. And I've learned that even what works in Springfield, Missouri doesn't work in Wichita, Kansas. And so we can all get together and come up with ideas and concepts. And I've just found that you have to really understand who you're serving and your market and the demographics and the things that go on here. And so I feel like we've had unique challenges just like everyone, but we have student-run teams just like high schools do. So we'll have student council, and we have like a Be Nice or Else team that's about giving back to the community. And so I have found that if the students are invested in it, it's never going to work. And so sometimes us as educators or my management team can have their reasons they don't want to do it, but I'm just like, let's find out what the students want to do. So we poll the students all the time. time. They have surveys. So we make sure they have a voice. And so one thing we don't subscribe to is, well, that's just the way we've always done it. And it works.
Good.
Yeah, we just have to break out of that.
I've been adopting this mindset a little bit too. I thought, we come from the age of work harder, not smarter. And these people are working smarter, not harder. And they're valuing their time off, their vacations, their little luxuries that they treat themselves to that we would have just never afforded ourselves.
Right.
And instead of fighting it in the last few years, I've thought, you know what, maybe they're right. Maybe they're onto something. And I think maybe they are. I think it's okay. I think all these small evolutions of getting away from, you absolutely graduate from high school and go to college. Maybe you do something like this, or, maybe you go ahead and do take your vacation in the middle of your school education and have to pay more. I don't know. I think that's a lot of it. So I love that you enlist your students and let them show leadership and learn from that.
Yeah, I've had to just really not react in the moment. And I make sure that my staff can say, hey, the students had some ideas they would like to. And sometimes my first thought is like, oh, I'm always thinking of why this wouldn't work. But I've had to take a moment like, well, let me just think about it. Let me think about it. And I've tried to be a lot more open-minded and flexible, even if it doesn't look like things that we've ever done before.
Do you find that sometimes you're surprised? Like, that does work really well.
Yeah. I am surprised of things that I was like, oh, I don't know if we'd ever do that. Yeah. And I think it just challenges us to change and bring change all the time. And that's what I always tell people if they want to work here too. If you're somebody that's very black and white, and you're not flexible and you're not willing to bend, you're never going to work here as an educator, because we do have to function a lot in the gray areas. And I always say we have to make educated compromises. And so we have to really weigh things out. And so at the end of the day, we just need these kids to come to school, be engaged, learn what we're giving them that is what they paid for. And so that way they can go out there and, be an asset to the industry. And so sometimes you have to find creative and different ways to do that. Yeah. And it's just challenged me really as a person, as a mother, as a teacher, all of it too. And I've seen the change in my staff over the years and stuff too. But yeah, it's a journey. It never is the same day twice. That's for sure. It's never boring. And you never think you've mastered it.
That's with this whole industry. I think that's what I love about it. I can't imagine being one that sits in an office and does the same thing every day with the same four walls and few people around me. Every day is different. Always has been.
And the people is what makes it unique and fun. And I just think having these 3 programs here is we just get a really vast diversity of people. And I think that that's great. And I think it really educates you as a professional on, how to relate to people and deal with different things behind the chair.
How is your aesthetics program doing, and how has that affected your cosmetology program? How, that's a big change to bring that in.
It is, yeah. I think it's doing great. I mean, we could always use more. Who couldn't? I think that's been a learning journey about they're a different demographic.
Did you start the aesthetics program here in Wichita, or were you already doing it in Springfield?
Springfield's been doing it for a long time.
Okay.
And
so it wasn't completely new to you?
No, I mean, and a bunch of Paul Mitchell schools have been doing it a long time. We were just kind of dragging our feet. We just didn't know if we could carve out space in this facility. And that it was really key that I had to use the footprint that I already have and, not expand or whatever. And I just felt like aesthetics is not an area that I'm not familiar with. Yeah. And since we've been licensed the same way, remember they just kind of grandfathered you into aesthetics.
It's crazy. I say all the time, I cannot believe that it is legal for me to do a massage or somebody's nails.
I know. I remember when I got that in the mail, I was like, why would I want to do that? I was just kind of limited in my thinking. Yeah, right. I don't know. And so that was kind of the biggest challenge for me is I thought this is an area that I don't feel super educated in. And so Paul Mitchell's pretty open with the curriculum. You can add a lot just because aesthetics vary so much state to state. As we know, it was $650 here and now it's $1,000. And I think Missouri is also $600 or $650. And so, 1,000 hours is kind of a long time for this. And so we had to really figure out what all are we going to do for this curriculum? And so we had a lot of, no, I don't think we did it the right way. Let's redo it. How many start dates should we have? And then just getting to know our customer, because the aesthetic customer is not the same as the Cosmo customer. They're definitely a different breed. just as the barbers are. And so just getting educated on that was a lot. I was like, it's been so long since I started a program. I thought this could be the death of me. It was a lot.
It can be a refresher.
Yes. Now on year 2, great. I feel like we're kind of in a groove. We've got amazing staff, but year 1 was just like, I felt like a lot of misstarts. A lot of discoveries, as we say, lots of discoveries.
Discoveries. So, I'm going to remember that. That's
not mistakes, but discoveries. Yeah. And not to be scared, because I feel like in this industry, I think people do get really scared of, because hair, it can grow back, but obviously immediately when you make that cut, it's like scary. And so sometimes getting people to not be scared, and the same with waxing. It's like, well, if you wax, I'll never forget. In cosmetology school, I had a friend that waxed like a circle out of a client's eyebrow, and we're all sitting there, we could see it, and she just pulled it off, and she was like, we're like,
I have a waxing scar to this day from school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, above my lip.
Was it just too hot?
I don't know. The skin just came with it, and
yes, I know. We could write a book on all those things too. That's what I always say too. Like, if we don't feel like that we're ever going to make the money we need to in school, we could just start a reality series, or write a tell-all novel. And,
I've always thought that things I've heard behind the chair. I wish I would have journaled all the years I was behind the chair. Oh my gosh.
We say that too. Like, you just can't make this stuff up.
You can't.
John Paul has been approached numerous times to do a reality series on Paul Mitchell schools.
Amazing.
And he just never has, because they know it would just highlight the negative side, things that make good TV are not the things that really help your industry probably. And, we don't want to focus on that. So
the thing that I think we love and sometimes dislike about the industry is that you're on such a roller coaster when you're behind the chair or the table or wherever you're performing your services. You've got one client at the beginning of the day who just announced great news. She's getting married, she's pregnant, whatever. And then you've got the client right after her who's losing her mother. And you have to ride those waves all day long. And I think that's very unexpected and not everybody's built for it.
Yeah.
And some people are built really well for it.
Right. And same in school. We have students that are just going through things, losing their parent.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. I think servicing all these people really makes me appreciate my own parents and my own childhood, just because the things that people go through these days, I feel like it's shocking and amazing, and so that's why we try to have a really supportive culture, because you just never know.
And those people usually end up being really great in the industry because they have that empathetic heart, and they've been there, and they're relatable, and all those things.
Yeah. They don't have it easily laid out. They know if they don't make something, they may never have anything. Yeah. You got to stay hungry, that's for sure.
Well, this has been so fun getting to know so much more about you than I already knew. I've had the pleasure of getting to know you a few times when you're in visiting your stylist who's in one of our salons. I always love coming in and seeing you're there, and Katie doesn't get a word in edgewise when I visit, but it's been fun to get to know you, and I think we have a common love of the industry. So thank you for doing this. So if someone is interested in going to cosmetology school for aesthetics or cosmetology or barbering, how would they get a hold of you?
So they can follow us on our socials. Paul Mitchell, the school, Wichita. We've got a great Instagram, TikTok, and that's a great way for them to peek in and just kind of see what the day-to-day looks like. They can also just go to our website, paulmitchelltheschoolwichita.edu, and check us out. Or they can just drop by, too. We're over here on Rock Road, across from Chuck E. Cheese, behind Dairy Queen. Walk-ins are always welcome. We've got a great admissions team that can walk them around, tell them about the industry, and, talk to your stylist. We've been really fortunate to have so many great leaders in the industry that now either, rent space from you at Utopia or have their own salons. And so, sometimes that's the
You have a great reputation in the community. It's easy to recommend people check out your school.
I love that. Yeah. Well, I feel like we've got some people that have worked really hard, and we try to stay on top of it and just kind of, make the changes that need to happen, reinvent yourself, and try to stay relevant too. That's always a challenge. But I appreciate the time, and I love getting to know you too. We'll have to have coffee and just chit chat some more about
definitely.
it.
We keep saying that we need to do it.
Yeah, we do.
All right. Well, thank you, Schrene. Thank you so much for listening today. If you haven't already, be sure that you are subscribed on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss a future episode. And if you would be so kind as to leave us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, that would be incredibly helpful. It's one of the best ways to support your favorite shows. If you've already done so, thank you so much. Be sure to share this episode with a beauty professional who will be inspired by our conversation.
This show is part of the ICT Podcast Network. For more information, visit ictpod.net.